Without further ado, we'd like to turn it over to Laura Garcia, who's going to talk to us about verification on the go, how to use your phone to verify online material.
Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I'm really excited because we're trying out a new format this afternoon. We're going to do a little bit more interactivity, and I'm going to encourage you guys to follow along with me and see if you can beat me to verifying some of the examples that we're going to be going through together. Let me tell you a little bit more about me. So I am the training and support manager at First Draft. And I'm originally from Mexico, so if anyone's tuning in from Houston, Texas, and has examples about Hispanic and like bilingual communities, I'm very excited to talk about those. You've got all of my contact details on screen in case you want to connect about mobile phone verification. I'm a big fan of TikTok and doing research on TikTok, and all and any cat memes are 100% welcome to to be sent to me either on email or in my DMs on Twitter. So a little bit about First Draft, in case you're not super familiar with what we do. We work with journalists and communities, academics, researchers, technologists from all over the world to empower them with the knowledge, understanding, and tools needed to build resilience against harmful, false, and possibly misleading information in crucial moments that matter, like global health pandemics or elections or protests. And that's kind of why we're doing these all ahead of the US elections in 2020 and have started doing them since the global health pandemic started. Also, because we have to teach online now, right? Nobody can go and do teaching in person anyway. Welcome anybody who saw us at ISOJ last week. We're very glad that you are repeat consumers of the training that we're doing at First Draft. There's lots more coming for August and for end of August and September, and I will tell you all about the bits that are coming up really soon. I hope today's session is as interactive as the TikTok one. At least I've tried to design it that way. So if you haven't got your phones at the ready, please go ahead and fish them out so that you are 100% ready to follow along with me. So today we're going to do 3 things. Number 1 is knowing what to look for is half the battle. So how do you spot stuff really quickly when you're scrolling past really quickly on your phone and your screen being a lot smaller? Getting your toolkit and techniques ready. So I'm going to walk you through some of my favorite or the core apps and websites that I use on my phone to verify if I'm ever out or not near my desktop. Not that we're all out, but you know what I mean. And then we're going to go through 3 interactive examples of mobile phone verification. And they get from easier to harder. And I'm going to challenge you to go along and see if you can complete them with me. So step number 1, how do we know what to look for? And if you were at my ISOJ talk, a little bit of this is kind of like harks back to that, but it's about understanding that the main characteristics of media manipulation are the same, whether you're seeing them on a computer screen, on a phone screen, on an iPad, on a smart television, printed on a pamphlet, they're exactly the same. And it's that bad actors use manipulated information that is anchored in a kernel of truth to mislead, to confuse, to sow distrust in anything that we call a wedge issue. So wedge issues are issues that people are really emotional about because we obviously all have stakes in it, or that we feel really emotional about them, and that also have a couple of sides, right? So we're talking about politics or voting or health or climate change. And in those wedge issues is where bad actors try to sow disinformation and distrust. And they do it in a really effective way through these tiny screens that we carry around in our hands because they're tiny and because we consume stuff on phones so much quicker than we do on computers, right? Think at the speed at which we do here. We do this. And how much of that do we actually take a little bit of time to consider before we share or we forward? And from our research, we have seen that the main types of particularly coronavirus misinformation come in the shape of 4 questions: where the virus came from, how it spreads, symptoms and treatment, and how authorities and people are responding. And you can think of these kind of same basic questions for any other issue that you're covering that might become contentious. So if you're a New Zealand journalist, for example, there's elections coming up. What are the big questions that people have about the election? And to fill those gaps, that's where you are going to find mis and disinformation. And thinking about these questions beforehand means that you're going to be so much more prepared to spot these things when they show up in front of your tiny screens or when someone else sends them to you, right? So kind of like, think of Inception, the film, when they reverse engineer a story to its core. That's what these questions are. We also have to be really conscious that problematic narratives build over time. They are not suddenly like bursting out of nowhere. They are the byproduct of the drip drop of little pieces of information that build up a huge narrative, and that we as journalists and just as information consumers play a part in how this narrative gets built by the stuff that we forward to each other and that we consume, right? So if anyone's heard of the different theories around Bill Gates and vaccines, we have seen these build up for years, if not longer, and they build in these little teeny tiny drops, right? And we have to be careful of the part that we play in that, particularly because spreading stuff is so easy. And now, for example, this is a really good podcast by the New York Times, The Daily, I was going to say show, but they're not The Daily Show, the Daily podcast, talking about vaccine hesitancy in the United States and how that has become an increasingly growing problem. And if you didn't know your phone scans QR codes, here you go, little trick, switch your phone to camera mode, point it at the QR code that is on your screen right now, and it's going to take you to the page where you can listen to that specific podcast, because it's actually really informative. It's only about half an hour, and the transcript comes there as well if you'd rather just read the conversation rather than listen. Obviously, this is just specific to the United States, but very similar mirror narratives are happening all over the world. And we have to be even more aware of something called the trumpet of amplification. And this is a concept designed by our director of research and all-around awesome genius person, Claire Wardle. And it's a way to visualize how information moves through the funnel of the internet and how bad actors will plant it in darker spaces of the web, counting on how information spreads organically through social networks so that eventually it ends up being amplified by professional media, by us, right? So that when we write about a conspiracy theory, we're giving it a platform. In a way, it legitimizes it if we don't do it carefully. And that all happens mostly through these little things because people are scrolling by really quickly and don't stop to think before they share. And I'll give you my own example. So this is about being aware of your trigger points, how mis and disinformation spreads, because we all have specific trigger points where we stop verifying, where we stop thinking about it because it pokes something inside us that either makes us be really emotional or want to buy something for to feel a sense of control, or because we think it's funny. So this tweet, for example, is from earlier April, around April time. It's by a Twitter account called El Norte Futbol from my native hometown of Monterrey in Mexico. And the text reads, he's registered as COVID. They've registered the first baby in Monterrey with the name COVID in honor to the virus COVID-19 that gives you coronavirus. His name is Dylan COVID Hernandez Flores, and his parents are really proud. Now, I saw this really quickly on Twitter, just was scrolling past, and the picture caught my attention, the name caught my attention. I didn't think 0.5 seconds before I shared it with my friends from back home, with like my friends and my family and my boyfriend, because I thought it was really funny. I used to babysit a kid called Anakin when I was 13. I was 100% ready to believe that someone from my native Monterrey had named their child COVID. Turns out, El Norte Futbol tweets about football and like cultural satire. It was meant as a joke, but because I didn't even click through to the profile to see who these people were, I shared it though as if it was true. And I even shared it to one of my former students who works for a national newspaper in the UK. And he was going to pitch it to his news editors, right? This stuff spreads really quickly. And we all have to be aware that our power is here, right? This little flick to share forward, we do it so easily, but it's actually quite a big responsibility. Like in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you want to read more about the psychology of misinformation, why we are vulnerable, why it's so hard to correct, and what we can do to prevent it, I strongly recommend the last 3 series of articles published on our website, written by our Impact and Policy Director, Tommy Shane. They are really good to kind of understand the kind of underbelly of how this kind of stuff works, because that'll make us better at pointing it out, fishing it out, and having conversations with our communities about how to address it. Right, Laura, stop talking about theory. Let's get to it. Let's get your toolkit ready. So just like if you're going to be a mobile journalist and you need to fit everything into your backpack, you have to prep all this kind of stuff before you hit the road, right? You can't go out on assignment and then realize, oh, I need to go back for my battery, and then go back for your battery. Go back on assignment and then go, if only I had an audio recorder, and then go back to your audio recorder. Just like we carefully pack our kit to shoot and produce stories with our phones, we have to do exactly the same to be ready to verify stuff on the go. So poll number 2. This is just to give me a sense of what kind of apps I can recommend. What operating system does your phone have? Are you an Android person? Google phones all have Android operating system. Are you an iPhone person? Are you a Windows phone person? Are you a BlackBerry person? Those are still kicking about. Or does your phone have a different operating system that I haven't listed here? And this is just to kind of anticipate some of the app and website questions that some of you are gonna, and I was gonna say answer, but I'll be doing the answering that you are gonna ask. Okay, so predominantly iPhone users and a couple of Android users. Well, I'm gonna be doing this on my iPhone, but I have practiced a lot on a Google Android Pixel. So I'll answer your questions either way anyway, but that helps me kind of keep track. So getting your toolkit ready is about thinking, what are all the apps that I'm gonna need? And this is just one of the landing pages with all the apps that I have on my phone, but I have apps for social media, monitoring, storytelling, reverse image searching, account analysis, researching trends, geolocation, private browsing, looking at the darker spaces of the internet like Reddit or 4chan. You can do all of that on your phone. But again, if you're trying to figure it out while you're under pressure to verify something, you're never gonna do it, right? All of these things have to be ready, set to go. Just kind of like, this is a really silly example. So I hide granola bars in all of my bags and all of my coats so that one day when I forget to pack a lunch, I can just put my hand into my bag and be like, oh, I have something to eat. Kind of like that. You have to get ready, right? And be ready for that rainy day when these things might come across and you might need to verify them. And there's two ways of having these tools really available for you to use. Number one is by downloading apps. These will vary a little bit between operating system and some of them will cost money. But a lot of them will also have like in-app purchases, which means that you can do a certain amount of functions without having to pay. Or if you're doing this all the time, then maybe it's worth paying the $3 or whatever. Yeah. And then the other one is by doing a home screen shortcut. And that depends on whether the website that you're trying to look at, is optimized for mobile viewing. There's a really good question about how to select apps because many of them have security issues. Yes, you are 100% correct. And it's a really hard one because there's private browsing apps that I can show you on my phone. So you can get, for example, the equivalent protection of Tor or Brave browsers on your phone that then gives you extra layers of protection so that your activity is not being tracked and there's not that many cookies involved and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, whatever, you are taking a risk by having those apps on your day phone. What I do is that the last time that I changed phones, and it was a while ago, I just kept my old phone. Or you can go and buy a really cheap secondhand phone. So I do all of my journalism on this one because it's not linked to my phone number. It's not linked to my contacts address book. It's not even logged into my personal email address. I created like a monitoring email address that I use to log into Twitter and to all the apps that I've got. And then that way I know that this is completely detached from my life which lives here. Now I get that that is obviously not something that everybody can do, have two phones, but if you're starting to do really kind of delicate investigative work, it's probably worth having that conversation with your news editor. Because it doesn't have to be a super new phone. It just has to be able to run some of the apps that you're going to work with, right? And those same considerations that you would have when working at a desktop computer, we can have a look at and how you have them on your phone. So you all know how to download apps. I'm sure you do. Let me show you how to make home screen shortcuts in case you've never done it. So you have the instructions on the left for Android, and that is from Google Chrome from your browser. And then on the right for iPhones, and that is open it on a website on Safari. So whatever website you're on, you open it on Chrome for Android or on Safari for iOS. And then all you have to do is go to either the share or these three little buttons at the top of Chrome. And there will be an option that says add to home screen. And what that is going to do is it's going to add an icon to your home screen in the next available slot that'll take you directly to that website. So like a shortcut. Right? That's exactly what it's doing. And then you can arrange it and put it wherever you go. So a lot of these things that I'm going to show you aren't necessarily apps that I've downloaded, but there are websites that I've realized actually work really well on mobile. And instead of losing time, remembering first of all what the tool was called, and two, typing it into my browser and trying to make sure I get it right, I just have them shortcutted on my home screen, right? And you can do this with any kind of app. So if there's a specific blog you like to read or stuff like that, you can 100% do the same and add them to your home screen. And like I said before, do not wait for a situation when you need to verify something. By then it'll be too late. You're not going to have time. Your editor is going to be asking you questions. You're going to be in the middle of watching TV while something's there, or your mom forwarded something to your WhatsApp group and everyone's asking like, do you know if it's real or not? And you're like trying to listen. So just make sure that you're ready, right? And again, this is just one of the landing pages that I've got on my phone. And I'm going to walk you through today through let me start again because I can't speak today. Today we're going to be using 3 specific apps. So we're going to be using Twitter, which I assume a majority of you guys will already have downloaded to your phone. We're going to be using Google Maps. You can use other mapping tools, but if I'm honest, Google Maps is the best one when it comes to geolocating things on mobile. And we're also going to use TinEye or in a reverse image search app if you already have one. And there's a couple that you can buy, but there's also a couple of free ones that are really good that I'll walk you through. So let's talk a little bit about verification workflow before we get started. Whether you're doing verification on a desktop or on a small screen, again, let's just start thinking about screens, right? Whichever screen you're verifying things on, the 5 pillars of verification still stand. These are 5 questions that if you try and find the answers to them, it'll give you a certain degree of certainty of whether what you're looking for, of what you're looking at is true or not. And we also have to remember that attribution is really hard. So sometimes with pieces of mis and disinformation that we find online, it's actually really hard, or we can't figure out originally where it came from or who produced it because the layers of how it's been shared are so complex. But we can know it's what it's not, right? And you have to be able to deal with that little bit of uncertainty. So if your news editor says, for example, there's a video on doing the rounds on Twitter about a cat dancing, do we know if it's from this year? Do we know if it's from Paris, where it's supposed to be? Maybe you can at least confidently say, you know what, I know it's from 5 years ago, and it's actually not from Paris, it's from Milan. I can't tell you exactly where it's from or when was the first time it was posted, but I can at least tell you what it's not, right? And that process of elimination is sometimes really important and something to think about, especially if you're doing it really quickly, because you might just not need to know exactly where it came from. You might just need to know what it's not. So these 5 questions are super crucial. Provenance. Are you looking at the original piece of content? Tracing back how something was shared to try and find who first posted it is actually really helpful to help you piece together the story of that content, the narrative that it was shared into, the groups that it was shared across, all that kind of stuff. Number 2, source. Who captured or created this particular piece of content? And it means that if you find their account, can you find those accounts somewhere else? Can you verify them? Can you find a phone number or an email to try and find out some more? That source of where the content comes from, or the person who first published it, or the account that first published it, can give you a lot of information to go on. Date. When this piece of content was captured or created. Location. Where it was created. And motivation, which is a little bit more where you're like making inferences, but it helps you kind of like try and place it in the context of how it has been shared widely. So those 5: provenance, source, date, location, motivation, whether you're verifying on a small screen or a big screen. And building yourself a little workflow is really, really important as well. And I'm going to walk you through 3 techniques to kind of interrogate those 5 pillars of verification today. The first one is, how do we verify accounts? Do we confirm identity? How do we confirm a profile? Can we find contact information? All that kind of stuff. How reverse image search can help us check whether a photograph has been published before, or find a better resolution version of a photo to then ask some more questions. And geolocation. So how do we find visual clues in a photograph or a video so that we can confirm the location or the date of the video or of the account? And those 3 are the examples that we're going to go through to practice those things together. All right, action time. Verifying accounts. This is our very first example. TinEye is not in the App Store. I'm just looking at the questions because it's not an app. It's a shortcut. So go to tineye.com and then add the button to your home screen as a shortcut. Actually, let me show you how to do it. This is where we're going to try technology. Hold on a second. So share my phone through AirPlay. Amazing. Screen mirroring. Cool. Here we go. So if you go, I'm on iPhones, right? So if you're doing this on an Android phone, please, please, please go on Chrome. So
Or
I'm
your
gonna
screen
go.
is magnified big time.
Sorry.
Screen is magnified. It's like stretched out.
Oh, I think it's because it's still. Yeah, 1 second. I can fix that. Thanks. Now.
Welcome.
Mm,
And we have someone say that they can't find Tinai in the App Store. Is it something that they just Google to find?
Yes. So if you just Google tinai.com and then make a home screen button, which is what I was trying to do before I didn't hook up my phone correctly. Can you see my phone better there?
Still magnified.
How strange. We did try it just before. Even there?
Yeah, I would try the cord instead of AirPlay.
Yeah, let's try it.
Oh, for someone else. All right, keep going.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, everyone.
If it ends up being stretched for you guys, say it in the chat and I'll try it again, yeah? So if you go to Safari and go literally anywhere. So for example, I've just discovered there's a website called BBC News that takes the code from BBC News, the website, and then just swaps all of the pictures for cat pictures and a couple of the words for kitten or kitty. So it's exactly the same stories that you see on BBC News, except that it's got cat pictures. I want to make this a shortcut on my home screen. So you can go down here to the share button, and then I scroll down to where it says add to home screen. It's going to ask me what I want to call it. I'm fine calling it BBC News, Muse, sorry. And then I click add. And then you should be able to see it on my home screen there. So now, instead of having to type BBC News into my web browser on my phone, I can just click on that and it takes me straight there. And there you go. That's kind of how you did it, how we do it, right? Let me walk you through the verifying accounts example first, and then we'll go back to doing some more magic stuff with phones. So this first example, I can't show you the actual live tweet because it's been taken down, but we're going to go through the things that we could have done to verify it together. So when it comes to accounts, there are a couple of really easy steps that we can do to verify who people say they are or who organizations say they are. Number one is never share something without clicking through to see who tweeted it, right? Even if it's the most hilarious thing you've seen on Twitter or shared on Instagram or a TikTok, click through. What account is it? Who are these people? What does their profile photo look like? Can you get some more information about who they are, right? Number two, what is their previous activity online? Number three, can you download their profile picture or screenshot it and then reverse image search it to see if you can find other social profiles that they have on the internet? We all kind of do the same thing where we have 2 or 3 photos in rotation that are our profile photos for any social network that we are on. And that's an easy way to start to find these and piece them together. Can you find them on other websites? So for example, if you reverse image search my photo, you'll find me on First Draft's website that has contact information. And then can you just do some old school journalism and give someone a phone? A phone? A phone call. Give someone a phone call, right? So here we go. Example number 1. This is a real life tweet that says Prime Minister Boris Johnson has died. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is where there's a poll coming up next. Yeah. So poll number 3. You have no more time to look at that tweet because I gave you even more time that you would have looked at it on Twitter. So if we can put poll number 3 on screen, would you share it or not share it? Yes, share. I'm not so sure. Nope, don't share. And remember, this is the easiest one. They'll get more and more complicated as we go along. And I'm going to ask you why as well, right? Because verifying is not only about saying, oh, it's out of context or it's not real or don't use it. The question is why? We have to give each other answers and we have to give our audiences answers so that they understand what we're doing. So good. Everyone went for no, don't share. Also, it's kind of a trick question because the tweet is from April and we all know that Prime Minister Boris Johnson is still very much alive. But I'm going to walk you how you could have figured that out really easily, right? And let me open up the chat box again so I can see someone saying, I don't share it if I only see it from one source. That's a good way to kind of do these kind of things, that you need to see it from 1 or 2 sources. But even if you saw it from 5 sources, how do you know those sources are verified or trustworthy? And there's very simple things that you could have done. So in this specific example, and before everyone goes, oh, I would have never fallen for it. Of course not. Nobody would. This particular tweet was actually reported as fact by a couple of outlets in Pakistan and India. because when we're reporting global news, we lack a lot of the context, or sometimes we are encumbered by layers of translation, right? So it's very easy to say with the power of retrospect, oh, I never would have fallen for that. When actually, what if you are trying to report on something happening in the Philippines or the Australian bushfires, and someone shares a map of a place that's not Australia because you don't know Australian geography, you retweet it, right? So it's about having that empathy and understanding that we all have blind spots. So this particular example did go far, and people had to retract and say that actually Boris Johnson hadn't died. So there's some clues here, and there's a lot of information just in one single tweet. You have the account name, the account handle, the account profile photo, the actual content of the tweet, the text, the image that goes with it, when it was tweeted out, and how it was tweeted out, right? And if we investigate all of these in a go, you don't even need an app for this. This is just about, instead of going share, you stop and you look at it for a second, right? So the profile photo kind of looks like the BBC. BBC Breaking News isn't an actual real Twitter account. That photo, the main photo, they do tweet stuff like that when there is breaking news. But I don't know if you can notice, but there's a little like black line at the top and at the bottom. And that maybe means because it's not an image that they are using natively, that they screenshot it from somewhere else. The handle says BBC Breaky rather than breaking. So it's missing that little last bit of the ing verb. The actual content of the tweet is just text. And for those of us who work in journalism, Twitter works to send traffic back to our websites, right? If you tweet something out without a link to send people back to, you have basically wasted 280 characters. Most media outlets tend to tweet something that takes you back to the article or where you can read more on their website, because that's how our business models work, right? So it's a little bit fishy that they're not linking back to anything else. And then you have this one here, Twitter for iPhone. Now, I don't know about you guys, but all of the media outlets that I have worked for, especially the bigger ones, no one's tweeting from their iPhone, right? You're doing it from different desktop apps and complicated programs to try and schedule things. And so more than one person can have a look at a tweet before it goes out. And granted, this might not be the case everywhere, right? I have worked for some like smaller, more regional outlets where I'm the one literally tweeting from my phone. But when it comes to BBC News, a really big national public broadcaster in the UK, that for me, at least when I first saw this tweet, was a telltale sign that maybe something was fishy, right? So let's investigate further. And the only reason why I'm not showing you this live on Twitter is because this tweet has already been taken down. But we did do a bunch of screenshots before they took it down. So if you actually look and click through to the account, this is step one, right? Before you even share it, just click through. They're actually using the same profile photo that the BBC was using at that time. But you can see that their bio is not that fleshed out. Again, news outlets would want to take you back to their website. This account started in June 2012, and that seems a little bit kind of late for the BBC for me in my head. And look at the number of followers as well. So the UK's national biggest broadcaster with an international audience has only 341 followers. Alarm bells, anyone? Right? So you know what I'm getting at. We even look at the stuff that they've tweeted previously. Look at some of this account's previous tweets. There's even a couple of swear words and expletives. That one says, Boris Johnson, just take it on the chin, mate. A GIF. Even some other ones where they are reacting, when this account is reacting to BBC Breaking News' actual account. Now, what happens? This account was called something completely different before. The profile picture was something different before. But the moment that you change your name and your handle and your profile picture, it does that for all the tweets that you have ever made, right? So for example, I changed my profile photo on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, and now that's the one that you see for all of my tweets, even though the photo has been recently changed. So it would have taken you one click and maybe 10 seconds of brain power to see that this account was an imposter account, right? They were trying to pass off for something that they're not. And your clues were the account name. There's no link that it's taking you back. There's no link on the bio taking you to the website either. The account profile and the information that's on it, and all of the previous activity and the previous tweets of this specific account. Right, get ready, because this next one's a little bit more complicated. Let's practice reverse image searching. And these are like combos, right? None of these necessarily work every single time in isolation. You might have to combine a little bit of both. It's a little bit of digital share looking. So when we reverse image search something, we are trying to find out three things. Number one, what is the earliest version of this photo that we can find? Has it actually been published for the first time today when the story is happening, right? Is it a stock image from 5 years ago? All that kind of stuff. Number two, can I find a better resolution of this photo so then I can zoom in to try and see more detail? Nature of the internet and how things happen is that people forward stuff to each other, we screenshot and share, and every single time we're losing and losing and losing visual information because the quality of the photo gets worse and worse. And the third one is where it has been shared, right? So if you know that after you do a reverse image search, a specific image has been shared in, for example, like meme chat boards or communities or places where people share jokes and funny content or satirical content, that might also like alert your spidey senses that something's not 100% right here. Give me a second, because I just saw something flash up in the Q&A, which I can't seem to see. So now you're gonna have to tell me what's going on.
I'm on it. We're good. Keep on moving on.
Perfect. So there. Okay, this is our second example. This is a photo that was shared widely on Twitter and other social platforms, kind of around, I'm gonna say May, early June. We'll look at the original tweet in a second, when lockdown was starting to get a little bit loosened up in the UK and you could go out to the supermarket, but you have to keep your distance, and all of these kind of markers on the floor to help people stay 2 meters away from each other were starting to pop up everywhere, right? And someone tweeted saying that this was a very British pigeon because he or she was waiting their time inside their little circle. And we all know that it's a stereotype that British people are very polite and they queue and they wait patiently in line for their turn, right? And like all mis and disinformation, as I said before, it's anchored in a little bit of a kernel of truth, right? There's things like this that have happened that make us susceptible to believe that this might just be another case of that type of story. Point in case, I don't know if you guys remember, again, at the beginning of lockdown, everyone was sharing these pictures of like, oh my God, dolphins are coming back to Venice and look at how clear the waters are and I don't know where. And these elephants, I just went to a rice field and got drunk eating maize, or I think I just made that one up. But you know what I mean? It was the whole like nature is healing, animals are coming back as we're all in lockdown. And some of those stories were true, but a lot of them weren't. But because they were anchored in that truth, that some of them were actually true, it's easy to fall for them and to share them across. And just to prove the point, for example, this is a real life photo of a McDonald's in Wales during lockdown. These sheep went on a little trip, ended up in a McDonald's until one took a photograph. And then, hold on a second. Oh, I thought I had another example. Here, this is another example. So I don't think my GIF is loading, but this is this is a video, which I can share later, of a kangaroo that went for a little tour around Adelaide in Australia. Again, at the height of lockdown, when no one was driving on the streets. So all of these stories are anchored, there you go, my GIF has finally loaded, are anchored in some sort of truth, that some of these stories are true, but it doesn't mean that they all are. And if we verify a little bit, then we can get better at spotting the ones that are and the aren't. And for example, in this one, there is a marker here that says ABC News. They are the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. So that's an easy first step to then go and have a look at their website, see if they posted it, where they got it from, and start to do a little bit of investigation. Right, so try this one with me. Point your phone at the screen, and it's gonna take you to the original tweet that has this photograph. And what I'm gonna ask Nell to do now is to put this poll up on the screen now. We're gonna leave the poll running the whole time that I'm taking you through the example, and let's see if you can beat me to figuring out the answer just using your phones, right? So if you point your phone at the QR code, it'll take you to the original tweet. Let me hook up my phone to the screen and we're gonna do it together.
For some reason, the poll is blocking the QR code. You can slide it over anywhere you'd like on your screen.
Cool, 1 second, let's see. Amazing. So let's look at the original tweet then, shall we? And I have it bookmarked and ready. So the original tweet is this one, and it shows, like we've seen before, so it's a queue and there's a pigeon in the middle, and you can see when it was tweeted. So it was April, sorry, I said May, but it was kind of late April. It says Twitter for Android, so it was tweeted from a phone. That gives us a couple of clues. Let's look at who tweeted it. So first of all, you see the account is verified. And if you already know the answer, please go in and click it ahead. I will walk you through it anyway if you're unsure. So if we click on the account, this man, Jeremy Vine, is actually a television and a radio presenter in the United Kingdom. You could go, for example, and Google his name and try and find out more about who he is. But I can just tell you that from the kind of the cultural context that I operate here in the UK. You can see that he's based in London, that he joined in July 2011, that he's got a Facebook page with his name on it. And if we click on it, you can see that's the same face guy, same profile picture. See, so if we'd reversed image his profile picture, we would have found this as well. Okay, so he seems like a real human person. That doesn't mean that what he is sharing is in the right context, right? So what I'm gonna do is, the first step is save the photo to my camera reel. And the thing about reverse image search engines, and I think there's the question about it in the chat, is that all of them have different algorithms and look at different spaces of the internet in different ways. So sometimes one particular reverse image search engine won't show anything, but a couple of other ones will. So it's worth trying a couple of them just to see what comes up, because both the algorithm is different and what spaces of the internet sometimes that they're looking at is a little bit different. In this case, I'm gonna grab tonight, which I've made as a shortcut. So you see, I'm not actually opening an app. I'm opening tonight.com on my phone. And I'm gonna upload this photograph from my photo library. And I'm doing super slowly to give you guys some time to see who can beat me to it. So this is found it in 52 places after looking through 42.3 billion images in 2.4 seconds, which is madness. Right? It's insane. So if I come down here, a bunch of them will be Twitter. I don't necessarily want to look at the ones that are on Twitter because they might just be resharing his original tweet. I want to try and find an older version or something shared outside of that platform to give me a clue to where it is, right? So let's see, that one's on Twitter. This one's on Imager from a couple of days before. Imager from April 19th already. So that's an earlier version. April 14th, April 3rd. Oh, here it is. There's a couple on Reddit. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this one. That was the. So you can, on Tonight specifically, I can click on the photo rather than the link, and it shows me my image if I click on the left-hand side, and then the image that it's found that it matched. And that lets me see two things. Number one, whether it actually matches, because remember, none of these things are 100% perfect. Your best tool is still this. And also it can tell me how it's modified. In this case, my image is missing the wing bits, right? That actually have a billboard. And if I find a better resolution version of this photograph, I can actually read those words. And that can give me a clue as to where this photo is from, right? I can also go and click through to the actual posts. For example, this one's from April the 12th in Reddit. And I'm going to keep seeing it here. This is already a better resolution version of the photo. So if you look at it, that looks, to my untrained eye, like Polish. But then we can read around it to see what people are saying and to try and figure out where they are, right? So maybe that helped you figure it out. Another thing that you could have done, which always helps, is to look at what people are replying to under a tweet. Now, this sounds like super basic, but when we are in the heat of covering a story, or we see something that pushes our emotional triggers, whether they're happy or angry or outraged or funny ones, we forget to do these things. So always, number one, click through to the account to verify who this person is. Number two, look at the replies that this tweet has, right? And people are saying that maybe it's not from Britain, that maybe it's from somewhere else. And that can start to give you some clues, right? Like if you look far back through those Reddit posts, the original photo is there. And I'm not going to do it right now because I want to move on to the next example because it's a little bit more complicated and I want us to have some time. But let's see how you guys did. So Manel, show me the results of the poll. Although I've kind of like totally given the answers now, so it's a little bit cheating. Yeah, most of you got it. So it is from Poland, right? And you can do that by both reverse image searching the particular photograph, finding a better resolution, and then the key part is finding that extra part of the photograph. Because that crucial bit in the right-hand side that is cropped out in the photo that Jeremy Vine shared It's what gives you that language cue that then you can figure out where this photograph is from, right? So congratulations if you got it. Don't worry if you didn't. That's why we kind of practice together. But then maybe try it on your desktop, right? Try and replicate the example and see if maybe you could have done it better. That's something else that you can always do, right? Remember that we don't have to always just do things straight on your phone. Maybe the first thing you do is email the link to yourself and open it up on your computer and see if you can go and figure it out through there. So let's look at our last example. We've already gone through that. Geolocation, right? So geolocation is looking for clues in a photo or a video to try and give us a sense of where something is from. If you're outdoors, you're looking for the weather, what people are wearing, what languages are on the signs, exactly like we did it with this last example. What the cars are like, what side of the road people are driving on. Can you see any posters? Are there any lampposts? What did the license plates on the cars look like? There's entire websites dedicated to showing you what the design of license plates is around the world. So stuff like that can help you figure it out. If you're indoors, you're looking again at what people are wearing. If the TV is on, what are they watching? If there's any posters on the wall, what's the language that they're written in? Although that doesn't always guarantee anything, right? Because for example, I'm from Mexico, but I live in the UK. So my posters would have things that have to do with both. If you're looking at a place, look for business names that you can Google. Businesses have a commercial interest to be listed online because they want you to find them. They want you to go and visit their store. They want your custom and your service, right? Now more than ever. So if there's ever any business signs on a photo or a video that you're verifying, 100% something that you can look up and try and figure out where you are. And can you find that same spot on a map, right? Thanks to Google Earth or Google Street View or Yandex Street View, there we have almost up-to-date, kind of reliable versions of what streets and cities look like that we can use to compare. And geolocation doesn't only help us to understand where something's from, it can also be when. So if you haven't played with Google Maps on a desktop particularly, there's a really cool thing that lets you look at archived versions of Google Street View. So for example, if I'm looking at a high street in the UK, what we call a main street, where all the shops are, I can go back through time to see how that row of shops has changed, what businesses have started, what businesses have left. And can I compare and cross-reference those to a photograph that I'm looking at to verify not just the time, but the space, right? So let's try it. This is a tweet by the New York Post from earlier in March. Now I'm going to ask you if you're going to play along with me, don't look at the replies, right? Because like with the previous one, people in the replies pointed out where this is from. So try and just do it on your own. And we know that the New York Post is an actual media publication in the States. So we're kind of like inclined to believe what they're saying. They have the little blue tick. The content of this tweet says, first case of coronavirus confirmed in Manhattan. And it has a picture of a man wearing a face mask, looking at his phone, staring straight into camera. Now, the question is this a photo of Manhattan in the States, right? Again, Nell, if we could put the poll up, let's see who can solve this before I can. If you want to go straight to the tweet, please, please, please point your phone where it says scan me. And like Nell said before, if the poll's obstructing where your QR code is, just move it to another side of the screen so you can see it. Let me hook up my phone again, and we're going to go through this one together. See if we can figure it out. What I'm looking for is the exact address of this photograph, where it was taken, right? And already it's kind of giving you away places that you can look for, but let's have a go at seeing it together and see if we can verify it. And I really apologize if my cat jumps straight into scene because she is staring at me, thinking about it very intently. We've done probably like 20 webinars to this point and she's never walked into one. So maybe today is the day that she decides to break that winning streak. Okay, so let's have a look at this particular tweet. Hold on a second. So if we look at this photograph, the first thing I want to do is download it to my phone so then I can stare at it in more detail and see how much information I can actually get from it. So I'm going to save it to my camera roll. Perfect. And then if I come and open it in my photographs and I zoom in, there's actually quite a lot of information in this photograph. So there is a post that says Main Street, yeah, and then we're on the corner of Duane Reade. Duane Reade, if you Google it, is a chain of pharmacies in the United States. These green posts, can you see them? They look like the exit of a subway or like an underpass in the United States. There's a couple of other like banners in the back underneath where it says 88. There's some banners that we could also try and look for. That says nails. Can you guys see it? The purple one on the side. But we're definitely on the corner of something. And oh, look at this as well. On the corner, there is a number. It says 13606. So what does that mean, right? So a couple things that you can do now that we've figured out all the information that we have. So we're looking for a Duane Reade pharmacy that is on an intersection of what looks like a busy crossing street between Main Street and something else. So Main Street goes this way and then something else goes that way. And then we're also looking for it to be in New York somewhere. So if I go to Google Maps, the other way around, Laura. And if you've already solved it, well done, right? And it's only in my saved searches because I was practicing before. So if I type in Duane Reade, New York, that's actually loads of places where I could start to look, right? So one way of doing this is you could just go one by one to try and figure out which one of these Duane Reades it is, right? So for example, if we hold down here, that is on the corner of 85th Street and Jamaica Avenue. And also the store is not on the corner. So that's not the one we're looking for, right? And then this one, for example, that one's in a little weird intersection of Myrtle Avenue and Wycliffe Avenue. So that's one way to do it. You can go one by one by one by one. However, we can use the power of social media and how people comment on each other's and interacts to try and get some clues. So if you look at the replies to this particular tweet, it says the first one, thanks for posting a photo of an Asian guy in Flushing, Queens. And then people keep saying Flushing, Queens, Chinatown, Flushing. And what the claim that they're saying is that New York Post has only used an image of an Asian man because coronavirus comes from China, but that has nothing to do with Manhattan. And the story is about the first case being confirmed in Manhattan. So let's see if Twitter is right? I'm going to type, instead of Duane Reade, New York, I'm going to type in Duane Reade, Flushing, Queens. Haha. So now I get a Duane Reade store that is on a corner of Main Street, Roosevelt Avenue. That M is a metro underground station. And remember how we saw on the photograph that there's those green poles that Hannah showed where you go into the you call it the subway in the States, don't you? Oh, look at me. I've lived in the UK for 7 years. Now I can't say subway. So maybe we found it. How do we know for sure though? On the lower left-hand side of your screen, there's a little picture that has like an icon to look around. If you click on it, it gives you the street view for that spot. Oh, hold on a second. Now I'm inside the metro. And you can look at pictures and check to see if we're in the right place. So for example, if we look here, we're at the corner bus stop and I'm going to look around. You can actually look and see whether we're in the right place, right? And look at some of the other businesses around and see if we've got the right one. So I think we do, but we're on the other side of the street because that's the corner that we really want to be on. Hold on a second. Oh, that's inside in the underground again. But anyway, that's how we would find out the address. And sometimes it's just about doing a little bit of Googling and checking before you go and taking the stuff that other people are commenting on social media, not at face value, but as clues to keep driving forward your investigation, right? So let's stop the poll and see who managed to figure it out, who got it. We're looking for the last answer, which is Roosevelt Avenue. Yeah, so there's actually 3 Duane Reades in Flushing, and the right one is this one, Roosevelt Avenue. Let's look at the other ones. So 4228 Main Street, 4228 Main Street in Flushing. It's not on the corner. Can you guys see that? So if you go in, it's actually not on the corner of I mean, it kind of is, but it's not on the corner of a big intersection. And if we look at the street view, I actually can't find the Duane Reade. So just because you found a join read that's on a corner, you have to go in and check, right, and have a look. The other option that people chose was 87, hold on a second, 8766 82nd, oh, I can't type, Street in Queens, which is there. And again, you're not looking at the same roads, right? It doesn't intersect with Main Street, which is what we were looking for. So always, always, always go and check. Last example that I'm going to show you before I just leave you with some resources, because we're running out of time, is that not only can we use our phones to verify, but we can use them to do complete investigations and to tell the story of those investigations afterwards. This is one of my favorite examples. And it is an investigation that someone did on TikTok of all places. And I'm going to play you a little bit of it.
Insane routes. I saw a video this morning of people in Michigan protesting the stay-at-home order. Specifically, this woman caught my eye because of her insane routes. She's complaining she can't get them done, but that looks like a lot of growth for the duration of the stay-at-home. So I did some research. Turns out they've been under the stay-at-home order since March 24th. That's about 28 days. From there, I thought, well, how fast does hair typically grow? Turns out it's about half an inch per month. I also Googled how long is the average woman's pointer finger, which will make more sense later, but just know it's about 108 millimeters. From there, I did some math to determine how much her hair should have grown in the 28 days that she's been under the stay-at-home order. It's about 0.45 inches. So then I did what any sane person would do. I grabbed a photo of her index finger, compared that to her roots, found out her roots are about 3/4 the size of that, or 81 millimeters, which also means that she started the stay-at-home with 2.7 inches of visible root, aka she has not got her hair done since October.
And granted, that's a silly example, right? But it just goes to show the kind of things that we can do on our phones and how she's doing all of her investigation. You can see that she's recorded her screen as she's Googled some things and typed some questions into her phone. If you're really interested in learning more about mobile phone verification, I'm going to give you the details of our next session, which is going to have kind of like the bumped up advanced version of what we did today. Today was just a little taster intro. So we've already done that one. TikTok, we've seen it. Right, let me leave you with some resources. Number one, we have a daily and a weekly newsletter. They're only in English for now, but they're really useful. And they come from our editorial and research department who monitor misinformation narratives from all over the world, how they spread as well, how we see things. For example, I do our monitoring for Latin America. Some of the stuff that my colleagues see in India ends up in Latin America 3 days later, and vice versa. These things spread. They are easily translated or subtitled or appropriated or reused and repackaged. And our daily and weekly newsletter is a really good way of keeping on top of those narratives all over the world. And also so you don't have to be doing a lot of reading. We'll do the reading for you and send you a debrief. So again, QR code will help you get subscribed to our daily and our weekly newsletters. Number two, if you're looking for a toolkit of these kind of tools to verify, news gather, research, and responsibly report disinformation, we have an online dashboard that is free for you guys to use and to bookmark. This is the one link that you want to bookmark. It is my job to make sure that it is updated, that all the links on it are active and useful. And if there's any tools that I'm missing, please let me know. We have a basic dashboard, which is the one that I'm linking you to. And on the bottom of that one, there's a link to the advanced dashboard if you're looking for tools that can do a little bit more complex investigation. Number three, we have a free course that covers everything that you need to know, whether it's tools, techniques, theory, how to approach disinformation, particularly around coronavirus. Obviously, the skills are really transferable outside of coronavirus, but we launched it at the beginning of the pandemic to try and give reporters from all over the world some of the tools and skills that we've been working on for a really long time. And this course is available in 6 languages: English, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, German, and Hindi. So if you go to covid.firstdraftnews.org, you can register there for free. Our newest, coolest thing is that we've developed a test message course. Now that we're all super tired of looking at our big screens, we have developed a course that gets you a daily text message with a little bit of information and some links to read around. This first course is specifically designed to teach people how to spot and verify disinfo ahead of the American elections. It's only in English for now, and it's very like US centric, but we do have plans to expand it to other parts of the world and other languages once we beta test it. But if you want to see what education through text messages look like, go to this link or scan that QR code. And la pièce de résistance for a couple of days in August, at the beginning of August, we are organizing an online event called Infotech 2020 to bring reporters together to discuss the challenges ahead of reporting the upcoming American election. Now, even though it's something that happens just to the States, it's obviously something that countries all over the world are interested in, that weighs on geopolitics, international relations, and a lot of us end up covering it anyway. So we're trying to build this event to give everyone a chance to talk about the challenges and some of the tools that we can use to build resilience together. And there's a couple of sessions that are going to be live streamed. The first one is our opening keynote with Vanita Gupta. She is the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. An amazing woman. Her half-hour, 45-minute lecture is going to be really interesting. So make sure that you tune in August the 4th at 12 noon Eastern time in the States, and it's going to be live streamed through First Draft's YouTube account. There's two practical hands-on sessions. One on how do you find your next story in political ads on social media. So using, for example, Facebook political ad library, all those kind of stuff, which is going to be on August the 5th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the States. And you've got the URL down here. Or its counterpart, which is the second version of this webinar, which is going to have some more advanced stuff, verification in your pocket for reporting on the go. Same, August the 5th at 1:30 p.m. Last but not least, the closing ceremony for Infotech is going to be given by Stacey Marie Ishmael, and she is the editorial director of the Texas Tribune, and that'll be on August 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, again, live streamed to our YouTube account. So stay tuned. All of this is going to be previewed in our daily and weekly newsletters, also in our social media accounts. If you don't follow us yet, make sure you get tuned in through there, because all of these sessions are going to be pretty amazing. And last but not least, however you found about our webinars, we have more coming up. So after Infotech, we're taking a week's break to just like chill and reset. But after that, we're going to be holding a series of webinars on the psychology of misinformation, what we've learned in 6 months of covering an infodemic and a pandemic, the challenges, for example, of reporting in minority communities or indigenous communities. We're going to do another session on the experience of Latin American reporters. So more and more things coming on. So if you want to find out the latest on our webinar team, go to this link and you can find it all there. And that's been pretty much everything that I wanted to run you guys through. I didn't quite leave that much time for questions, but I'm happy to hang around an extra 10 minutes if anybody's got any. So I am got my eyes set on the chat. If I can't speak today. If anybody has any burning questions, I am more than happy to answer them. And if you want to throw something my way and we can try and verify it, please let me know. Otherwise, you can also find me on Twitter at Laura GRB. I'm on TikTok at TikTok _journal, or my email, laura@firstdraftnews.com, or our general training email, training@firstdraftnews.com. So remember, if you found today interesting, please come to the next one, because we're going to take it up a bunch. We're going to look at how do you monitor trends on your phone? How do you do a little bit more private browsing and protect yourself when looking at potentially problematic information? How do we do analysis of Twitter accounts to see whether they're bots or not? So definitely stay tuned. And if anybody got any questions, I'm still looking at the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to keep filling time for about 30 seconds, and then we're going to wrap it up. But I can fill time for forever. I can tell you some of the more stuff that we're doing. So there's going to be way more training material coming up in different languages. We are going to completely redo the training part of our website, which is very exciting, to try and help reporters from all over the world and give them tools and practice. I'm also really keen in hearing the kind of things that your newsroom is desperate for, and to work with you to try and develop those tools and those supporting materials to give you the tools and the techniques that you need to produce credible reporting in an age of information disorder. So I'm glad you guys all liked it. I think no one's got any questions, which I'm going to take as a complete compliment of my teaching skills. Also, Nell, who's our fabulous organizer, is saying, let's wrap, aka Laura, stop talking. So thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a pleasure.